Remember, everybody was going 8-8 that year because
Yep.
oh, it's a tough schedule, new head coach, pandemic. I just can't go more than 8-8. And then the season ends, and what do we find out? It was one of the easiest
Just
schedules.
schedules, because the
Yeah,
schedule switches during the middle of the year. Like
teams are.
you find out who's good and find out who's trash, and then by the end of the year, somebody you thought was good is trash. And you're like,
All right, G. So I was at camp, right?
right?
We took a picture, right?
Yeah.
What did we learn from that picture?
That people just don't like. It's a lot of height and size perception issues, right? Who would have known that? Everything was mixed, matched up, man. People got a little perception of what we look like, man.
I did not know so many people thought I was 6'6". I did not know that. I don't know how that perception. It must be the angle or something. But the
It's the
amount of
angles,
people
man.
that thought, and here's the part that got me. There were people who were like, "Damn, G. Bush is tall." And there's other stuff that you can see, like how tall G. Bush is, because he's like legit 6'5", 6'6", and people are looking at that photo and like, man, Quincy must be 4 foot tall because they still think you like 5'8".
That's the crazy part about it is, like, I'm like, Quincy is not like, he's not a short dude by any stretch of the imagination. I just think it's like, you know what I'm saying? I think it came down to, they thought I was so short that like, they thought I was like 5'10" or something. And then like that automatically moved your height down.
They was talking about me steps. Like I was Siciliano. Like I was like with him. I'm like, oh, hold on now. Wait a minute.
Andrew Siciliano, he got a high chair at camp. They put him in a high chair, like, you know, that chair they be having where the babies they can eat some solid food, but it'll be mostly liquid still.
All I know is I was watching NFL Network to see me in the background. Shout out to me. And all I know is they had him on frame with Willie McGinnis, and I saw Andrew Siciliano's kneecaps in that frame. That's just, I'm gonna keep it real. Just let me be out the frame at that point. If you gotta put my kneecaps in the joint in order for me
I think he can get government like a check or something. Like there's like a check for that. Like you can get like $100 a month or something, bro. That man is like, he's I didn't even know. Shout out to him. His checkbook is large.
Hey, bro, short kings out here winning. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
the short kings
I got no
are out here. Like, ain't no disrespect to the short king. I ain't slandering none.
My wife is like 4'9". How tall are you, babe? 4'9"? She's 4'11". She's 4.
She said, "Give me them extra 3 inches, G. Stop playing me in front of your homeboys out here like, oh, 4'9", 4'9", dog. Come on now, 4'9".
She about 4'10" and a half.
Man, give her the extra inch. She 5 flat, man. Like, stop being disrespectful. She 5 flat, dog, out here. All right, but I brought that up. And this is a slick transition. I'm kind of ruining it by pointing it out, but you know, sometimes you just got to love yourself. We talk about my height and all that because we're here to talk about expectations. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I brought it all the way back around. So what we're going to talk about this weekend on this, there's 2 parts. One's going to be about expectations for a specific player. The other one's going to be about expectations for the team. And G, the team is at a peculiar place because we know we have a all-pro level quarterback on the roster. We just don't know when he's going to be active, right? It's like waiting for LeBron to come back from injury at this point. But given the talent that surrounds the quarterback position, which attracted that all-pro quarterback to this team in the first place, you know, what are your expectations? Like, do your expectations take a massive dip? Because I've heard a lot of people say if Watson doesn't play, the season might as well be thrown in the trash. And one, I don't know what that means. And two, you know, what are the expectations if that's the case, right? Let's say Watson gets that full-year suspension. What are we expecting?
So my thing is, if Baker Mayfield was last year a below average quarterback because he was injured or whatever the case you might want to say, the Cleveland Browns were in contention to the very last game of the season in terms of making the playoffs. They were in pretty much every game except for a few. You know, they were able to still, you know, have a defense that was in, you know, the top 3. They still had dynamic a running game, a dynamic offensive line. And like I said, they you got 2 games from the Bengals. Now, granted, Baker didn't play in one of the last game. Neither did Joe Burrow or whatever the case may be. But you beat the Bengals twice last year. You beat them twice the year before that. The Cleveland Browns were a team that can come out and beat whoever is there. They don't have. There's no team that the Browns, if they were going up against, you could be like, man, they got to play or get lucky to win this game. The Cleveland Browns have that much talent. So for me, when people start talking about Jacoby Brissett, I like Jacoby Brissett is better than healthy Baker or unhealthy Baker Mayfield, right? So like I'm confused, like why all of a sudden you think there's going to be 4 games when Jacoby Brissett has the capabilities of playing up to the level, at least up to the level of Baker Mayfield last year. Yeah. Then Go ahead. Go ahead.
And I think the people are missing on this is like we're not asking Jacoby Brissett to put in 2020 Baker Mayfield work, right? The team has gotten better since 2020. Defensively, they're much better. They don't require, like I think to get to that same level of success, they're not required to have that same level of quarterback play that they had in 2020, which was like, it was decently high. It wasn't like top 10 or nothing, but it was around, well, it was top 8 for somewhere. I won't hate on the brother entirely, but when it comes to what you need out of Jacoby Brissett to reach that same level, I don't think it's the same. And again, you brought up an excellent point. This team almost made the playoffs. And let's not just discount that it was Baker Mayfield playing the 27th ranked QBR in the NFL last year. Also, keep in mind, there was a Case Keenum game thrown in there, Nick Mullins game thrown in there.
Like won that game.
The quarterback play was awful last year, right? And yet this team was still able to be successful. And if you look at all the luck metrics, right, the fumble recovery metrics, the field goal makes versus misses on the Browns, it seems like the Browns were especially unlucky last year, and they still almost made the playoffs. That's how talented this team is. Now, that's not to say that's guaranteed they're going to win 10 games without Deshaun Watson. Still the NFL at the end of the day, you got to win these games. But I do think that there is a stronger possibility that this team can be a player. Like, I think, honestly, going into this season, the reason I ain't freaking out about the suspension that much is like I still feel like they can make the playoffs. And I don't feel like I know when I feel like I'm being ridiculous about something, right? Because at points last year when I was trying to believe in the Baker Mayfield thing, I felt it in my gut that I'm like, because it was after one of these games where it was like, man, if he could turn it around. And then I remember I got to that Green Bay game where he threw 4 interceptions. I thought to myself, well, that wasn't that bad. And that's when I realized I had lost my mind right at that point. But that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't feel like it's a stretch or even like me being overly optimistic, just because if you look at the quarterback play, and I know everybody, like at this point of the year, everybody overrates how good the conference is going to be, right? We did this every year, man, where AFC North, you're not going to win it unless you got 12 games. And the reality of more parity in football is that you're not going to see those egregious win-loss records, right? Where teams are like 14-2, 12-4. Like it's going to be more common to see 11-6, 12-5, a lot of 10-win teams, a lot of 9-win teams, right? There was a lot of parity last year. Pittsburgh got in with 9 wins. 9 wins last year.
That's crazy.
Right? Crazy.
That's crazy.
Crazy.
They weren't even that good. I think you going that one game gonna make a lot of parity, and I think a lot of teams gonna beat up on people too, each other. There's gonna be a lot of teams. There's gonna be somebody that you love, like you gonna love their squad. You are gonna think they're great, and they're gonna get off to a 1-3, 1-4 start, and you're gonna be like, what the heck is happening with them? It's just a lot of teams out there in the AFC that's solid teams, man.
Point number 2, right? Every year. We do this shit every year, and it drives me crazy. Year. Where we're like, oh, look at this gauntlet in the schedule. It's going to be the toughest goddamn gauntlet. And then we get to the gauntlet, and one team don't have their starting quarterback. Another team don't have the best player. You know what I mean? Like, every year. Injuries happen. That changes the outlook of the schedule. How many years have we gone into a season saying around 2020 is a perfect example. We went into that season talking about, oh man, this is the toughest schedule. I don't know if the Browns, remember everybody was going 8-8 that year because it's a tough schedule, new head coach, pandemic. I just can't go more than 8-8. And then the season ends, and what do we find out? It was one of the easiest schedules.
Just schedules, because the schedule switches during the middle of the year. Like you find out who's good and find out who's trash, and then by the end of the year, somebody you thought was good is trash. And you're like, well, the Browns have a look at their schedule. Somebody's gonna get hurt. A coach may not be on the hot seat. They may be about to get fired. They may switch quarterbacks. There's a bunch of stuff that happen in there. And then plus you gotta think about it like this too. There's 2 or 3 possessions in every single game that pretty much dictate who wins that game. It's not like teams in the NFL are drastically worse. Even when we went when we went 1-15, there was like 7 or 8 games that the Browns were either tied, winning, or within 1 point in the fourth quarter, and it's just like, wow, and they were 1-15. That's just the way the NFL is set up. Ain't nobody getting killed like that. So everything is going to be pretty much within a couple points here or there, and so I think the Browns will be, even with Jacoby Brissett, they still got enough of a roster, and I'm not tripping like you is. I keep hearing people say like, oh, this season you don't want to waste the season, go after Jimmy G, you're going to waste the season. And I'm like,
man, if you get me started on that, man, Jimmy G.
That Jimmy G train is moving, choo choo. People,
are you on that train, G. Bush?
Man, I tell people like this: if Andrew Berry want to go get him, so all right, so be it. Maybe he feel like he watch these dudes but I'm not about to go. I mean, I'm not excited. This is my excited face about going to get Jimmy G and being like, oh, this is what we gonna do, and we gonna win the championship.
All right, bro. I just had to check because one time you came up here with that Case Keenum cape on, and I still am in disbelief about that Case Keenum cape you put on.
See, the Case Keenum cape was just because, we was in 2 diametrically opposed places. You was still trying to fill Baker Mayfield, and I was already over it. I was like, I'll put the Case Keenum cape on before I keep going to the Baker Mayfield card. Just put Keenum in.
It wasn't like I didn't think he was bad at that point. I was just like, I know Case Keenum.
He was like, I know he's terrible.
Ain't no talking me into that, man. Look, if I'm very harsh on quarterback play, especially very mediocre quarterback play. So, it don't depend. I just don't like the idea of Jimmy G here, but I think you hit on some excellent points there, right? Can Jacoby Brissett be better than Baker was last year? I don't think that's out the realm of question to say yes, right? He's been better than Baker was last year in his career, given a full season. Last time he had a full season in 2019, he was 19, 20 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. That would have got us into the playoffs last year, right? Another question is, hey, are the Browns better than the Steelers were last year with Jacoby Brissett? I think so, right? I think they're still better. That's a wild card team. And again, I struggle how a fan base that knows for a fact what 4-12 looks like, what your roster looks like when you're a 4-12 team, can look at this roster and say, oh, 4 wins. I just don't. I already am gearing myself up to be pretty frustrated because every year certain writers in the city, and I'm not going to name anybody specifically, always drive me crazy because they always go 5 games lower than what's reasonable to expect. It's like it's going to be at that point there pretty soon. But I think people kind of have the expectations off. And one of the things, me and you talked about this when we met up during camp. And it's one of the things that I've been bringing up is I might do a video on this pretty soon. But people are looking at this trade as if Deshaun Watson does not play this year, the trade is an absolute disaster from a football standpoint. And my pushback on that would be, was what the 49ers did last year a complete disaster? Nobody talked about it like that, right? But they essentially did the same thing. You can argue it's more risky because they gave up 2 first-round picks and some mid-round picks for a chance to draft Trey Lance, who is going to have a chance to be a franchise quarterback. The Browns gave up 3 first-round picks and some mid-round picks, got one back for Deshaun Watson, who is a franchise quarterback. You just don't know when he's going to play. And Trey Lance didn't play much in year 1, right? The prognosis on Deshaun Watson is limited availability in year 1 or none. That's the same prognosis for Trey Lance when they drafted him, right? Obviously, Trey doesn't have the off-the-field baggage that Deshaun has that you have to deal with if you're the Cleveland Browns, but you also don't know if Trey's good, right? So from a football standpoint, it's a more sound trade. It's not going to be a more liked trade, but it's a more sound trade than what, that was. And I feel like the people's feelings about that trade, people's feelings about Deshaun Watson, it's so raw and people are so caught up in it that like we're purposely kind of doing this thing where we feel like the season's done already. And we feel like we're wasting primes. And also when people say that, right, we're wasting a season of Myles Garrett. It's usually people who are pushing that Baker propaganda, right, that say that, one. And two, it's like, well, what was the alternative? If you didn't want to waste a year of Myles Garrett, what was the alternative? Because Kirk Cousins was not available. Browns checked. They could not get Russell Wilson. Browns checked. What was available, right? Like, how were you not? And if you're telling me Jimmy Garoppolo is a way to not waste waste one of those players' primes, bullshit, man. Look at every player he's played with. They had to make Deebo Samuel a running back to get him the goddamn ball in San Francisco, right? Like, that's what they had to extend to just to get on the ball because the quarterback was that bad. I hesitate to buy this idea that the season's lost just because Deshaun can't play, because this team is so good. The season wasn't lost when it was Baker Mayfield that was supposed to start. How is it any different now? I mean, if you want to make the argument that, well, any season where you're not a Super Bowl contender, it's a lost season. Okay, then Baker's wasted 4. Like, then what are we doing here, right? You know what I mean? Right. So I just don't buy that argument. And then also people don't, what is a lost season? Define that in terms for me, people who say that, because I just have a hard time understanding what is actually is a lost season, because they're playing meaningful football at the end of the year. It's not a lost season. I know what a lost season is. Lost season is TJ Ward going down week 2 and then the Browns is winning 3 games from that point. Like, that's a lost season.
Man, I think at this point, most of the detractors from Deshaun Watson they just moved camps. They just took down the I'm salty that Baker Mayfield isn't here camp. And then they moved in halfway through the offseason to, well, if Deshaun Watson isn't going to play, why don't we just go ahead and start Baker camp? Then they realized they couldn't get that off, and they traded him to Carolina. Then it was like, okay, I'm supporting Baker game 1, but I root for the Browns on every other game camp. And then now they're in this is a wasted season if Deshaun Watson is suspended camp. All these people ain't. Listen, come on, you're not slick. We didn't see you change camps. The people that don't want Deshaun Watson, that's talking about, they're doing gymnastics about the cap space, doing gymnastics in their mind about why this is a wasted year and wasted Myles Garrett's prime, are the same people that are just still upset that Baker Mayfield's not the quarterback. Let's be clear. I mean, like any rational football fan understands that even if he is suspended for a year, it was the best option they had at the time, and they would make that trade over 100 times in a row. Anybody else that's saying that is just delusional at this point. Like, I don't know what you're looking at. To me, there was no other alternative out there. There was no way to upgrade the quarterback position. And even if you would have done that, Baker Mayfield, I think, would have just came out and screwed you anyway. I think if Baker Mayfield would have had a great year, he would have been like, listen, I'm not coming back to Cleveland. I don't care what they said. They're going to have to franchise tag me or don't tag me. I'm going somewhere else. I already, like, come on, bro. Like, let's not act like that's beyond Baker Mayfield. Like, he was mature enough not to do that. As soon as they said Deshaun Watson, he was about to be like, I'm out, period. I don't care what kind of year I got.
Yeah, they made Baker Mayfield an angel over this whole thing, and I know for a fact that's not how that thing played out. But that story, those stories will come out when they come out, G. They'll come out when they come out, man.
Usually halfway through the year, right? Usually halfway through the year, they come out, right?
Yeah, they'll come out when they come out. I'm not going to be the one that breaks that news for y'all. But somebody will tell you.